So Shantan, you can start the recording.
Yes, sir.
I have already started.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so in the last class, we highlighted certain allocation decisions, how to make decisions under different circumstances. We also talked about how to make certain regulatory framework, individual choices, like how can a farmer make decisions about what crop to cultivate or how to allocate the given amount of land across different crops. So I have basically summarized the 4 specific situations that we discussed in the last class in this matrix. I started with allocation of land across alternative uses. So this is basically the example 1, and then the other examples I have just clubbed with this. So in example 1, basically the issue was how to allocate land across alternative uses, like how much of the land should go for agriculture, how much of the land should go for setting, and how much of it should be allocated for constructing various infrastructural facilities like say roads, etc. Now we discussed the fact that in many cases the benefits or the some degree of complementarity or trade-offs. So the issue here is how to recognize such complementarity or trade-offs in the decision-making process, and that may be an interesting question for AI algorithm. This is basically with respect to the problem of allocation of land across alternative uses. That example, the very first example, what we discussed in the previous class. Now, just in the same matrix, I have brought in the other 3 examples, like say example 2, regulating mergers and acquisitions. What we have seen, mergers and acquisitions, it may be time specific, there may be multiple implications. Again, sometimes the implications may be conflicting, the outcomes may be conflicting as players. Like mergers and acquisitions may result in monopoly power for the firms, and in the process the firms may be in a position to charge a higher price, but at the same time such higher price is not desirable for the consumers. It may also happen that, particularly in the short run, it may so happen that mergers and acquisitions would result in greater efficiency for the firms, and to have larger share in the market. In the short run, the firms may not raise the price, rather it may reduce the price because of the efficiency gains, and that may benefit the consumers. So the outcomes may be contextual. It may be time specific, like short run versus long run. Like it may result in efficiency gains in the short run, in the long run it may result in monopoly power. Again, increase in price versus decrease in price. Higher price results in larger profit for the firms, but at the same time it causes decrease in surplus for the consumers. So an interesting AI question here may be how to optimize a complete objective function, basically combining all the potential outcomes of a particular deal of merger or acquisition. The third example was basically crop choice decision by a farmer. That is largely in the line of preference of an individual farmer versus what broadly the government looks at. For example, the government may look at promoting cultivation of crops, incentivizing cultivation of crops that are less water intensive, but at the same time, to maximize farm income, the farmers may opt for a different type of crop, which may be highly water intensive, which may require large degree of use of chemical fertilizers, etc. So the related AI question here may be how to make individual decisions given the broader objective of the government. The fourth example was basically combining allocation of resources and distribution of goods and services. From optimization point of view, it may be a problem of, say, optimizing distribution of goods and services, optimizing distribution of the output, giving the allocation decisions, or optimizing the allocation decisions, giving the distribution targets. So whether the solution would differ depending on whether we decide the allocation decision first, then production takes place, and subsequently we go for optimizing the distribution. Or alternative scenario may be first allocation decisions are optimized and then first distribution targets are set and then optimizing the allocation decisions are made. So the problem here is basically something like constant optimization, but which one to do first? That may be a very, very critical issue. The bigger question here may be whether the results should differ depending on whether we are optimizing the allocation first and then going for, or we are setting the distribution targets and then optimizing allocation of resources. Highlighted some potential solutions, the approach that normally we follow in economics. I'm talking about here basically the theoretical part of economics. Someone asked this question, how these problems can be resolved. I'm basically talking about it. Let us take the example of resource allocation. Here I'm basically assuming that we'll make resource allocation decisions first and then we'll go for optimizing the distribution. So the objective here is to maximize total output subject to the resource constraint. And I'm talking about a very, very simplified problem, keeping in mind that many of you are not having much exposure to the core theories of economics. So I have taken here a very simple example of only one resource to be distributed across two alternative goods, X1 and X2, and both the goods are produced by using this resource. So let us assume that the objective of the government here is to maximize total production, that is X, which is the sum of X1 and X2, and the production function is like X1 is a function of R1 and X2 is a function of R2. Technology is given for both the commodities. So question is how to allocate the given resource R0 for production of these two commodities. So what we can do, we can impose this constraint, that is R0 is equal to R1 plus R2, into one of the production functions. Here I have done it for the production function of the second commodity, and eventually it becomes a function of R1, and we are optimizing this, and from the first order condition we are basically getting F1 dash is equal to F2 dash. That is nothing but marginal physical product of the resource in case of commodity 1 should be equal to marginal physical product of the resource in case of commodity 2. And this is a very simple diagram. to present the same. Here we are assuming that with use of more and more resource, total production of a commodity increases, but it increases at a decreasing rate. So the marginal physical product curves are negatively sloped, and the resource stock is given at R0. So this is the boundary. The question is how to distribute, and we are seeing here that the point of intersection between the two marginal product curves, marginal physical product curves, is actually giving us the solution in respect of distribution of the resources between production of the two goods. So R1 bar will go for production of commodity 1, that is X1, and R2 bar will go for production of X2. Now we can see, like, if any distribution is more toward, I mean, if you are deviating from this solution and if we are moving toward commodity 1, then we can see that to the right of this point, distribution, we can see that commodity 2 is higher than that for commodity 1. So if more resource is allocated towards production of commodity 1, it basically results in inefficient allocation of resource. Same can be said to at any point to the right, to the left of R0. Sorry, to the left of this point of intersection. So what basically I'm trying to say here, that this diagram can give us a solution for allocation of resources for production of the two goods X1 and X2. But the challenge here is that the actual production process is not so simple. I can just highlight 2-3 major issues here. One is production process normally involves use of multiple resources like land, labor, capital, etc. So what should be the optimum composition of these resources or factors of production used in the process? Second, many of the farms are, so there is a related question of specialization. A particular farm is having a particular given amount of stock. So how that stock of labor is to be used for production of alternative goods by a particular farm. So there are two issues here that can be highlighted beyond this simplification of the problem. One is use of multiple factors of production in the process. Second, the farms may be producing multiple products. So there is a question of specialization also. The other issue is basically knowing the production function and then getting these marginal product curves. So all these are very, very complex issues, and we'll see how some such issues can be resolved by using AI algorithms in practice. Next example, now we have decided that R1 bar would go for production of commodity 1, that is X1, and R2 bar would go for production of commodity 2, that is X2. And accordingly, we'll get X1 bar and X2 bar, and this part we discussed in the previous class. So here X1 bar is the total production of commodity X1 and X2 bar is the total production of commodity X2, and these outputs are now to be distributed between the two consumers, two individuals, individual 1 and individual 2. How to do that? So now we are going to discuss certain mechanisms that can result in optimum distribution of output. And here we are assuming that the objective is to maximize utility of individual 1 subject to the given utility of individual 2 and production of X1 and X2. So production of X1 and X2 are now given, that is X1 bar and X2 bar. And we are assuming that utility of individual 2 is fixed, and we are trying to maximize utility of individual 1. If we go for this sort of approach, then basically by setting Lagrangian expression we get this, and again this constraint can be embedded here, and we can see ultimately we need to maximize the function, that is u1 is equal to u1 as a function of x11 x21 subject to this constraint. And from the first order condition we get this expression. I'm not getting into the mathematical derivation, but essentially it says what we call in economics marginal rate of substitution between the two goods for the individual 1 should be equal to that for individual 2. What is marginal rate of substitution? It is basically the rate at which the individual substitutes one commodity for another, keeping the total utility same. So how can I substitute one commodity for another, keeping the utility, total utility same? That basically gives me the rate at which I substitute the commodities. That basically gives me the marginal rate of substitution. So the first order condition here is that the marginal rate of substitution between the two goods for individual 1 should be equal to that for individual 2. But again, the critical issue here is basically to know knowing the utility function is very, very important. And second, which is very important, the commodities must be perfectly divisible. Otherwise, the function will not have the continuity and not be in a position to differentiate and derive these marginal conditions. So this is again a very, very important practical problem, and this can also be thought of some such problems can be thought of while discussing about AI algorithms. And the third very simple example, another way, just moving beyond calculus, I'm bringing in another example, that is input or output analysis in economics, and how sometimes we use the techniques of linear programming to solve some such problems. Here we are assuming that there are two sectors, and there is only one primary factor, that is labor. So total production in sector 1, that is X1, can be decomposed into its intermediate use, that is its use for further production, and then partly for the rest for final consumption. So what we are assuming here, X1 is equal to X11 plus X12 plus D1. What is X11? That is the amount of X1 which is used for further production of X1 itself. And X12 is the amount of X1 which is used for production of further production of X2. And D1 is the final consumption of X1. So if X1 is the total production of the commodity, which is nothing but its supply, then the right hand side is nothing but the demand. X11 plus X12 basically represents its intermediate use, and D1 represents its final consumption. Similarly, we have the equation, sorry, here it should be X2, I'll just correct it. Yeah, it's correct. No, sorry, it's correct. So I have actually written these two functions like this. X11 is equal to, X1 is equal to X11 plus X12 plus D1. This is for sector 1 and this is for sector 2. Now what we are assuming, let us assume that A11 is the amount of X1 that we require to produce 1 unit of the commodity. amount of X1 that we require to produce 1 unit of the commodity. So if we are producing X1 amount of the commodity, then X11 is nothing but A11 into X1. Similarly, X12 is nothing but A12 into X2. And similarly, we have rewritten the equation for sector 2. So X2 is equal to A21 X1 plus A22 X2 plus, and labor requirement is L0 is equal to L1 X1 plus L2 X2. What is L1? That is the amount of labor required to produce 1 unit of the commodity. Similarly, we can interpret L2. And if we have many sectors, we can convert into a matrix formulation like this, and accordingly we can solve for X1 and X2. In the process, we get how much output the two sectors or the m number of sectors in the economy should produce. Now, this problem can also be converted into a problem of linear programming. And in many cases, we do that in economics. Let us now redefine this problem. Let us assume that the objective is to minimize the labor cost. If W is the wage rate, then total labor cost is basically, this is total labor requirement and multiplied by W. And let us assume that this production of X1 shouldn't be less than its intermediate requirements. That is X11 plus X12 or X1 plus A12 X2. That means X1 minus A11 X1 minus A12 X2 should be greater than equal to D1. Nothing may be left for final consumption in a particular sector, but the total production shouldn't be less than intermediate requirement of the commodity. Same we are assuming for sector 2 also. If we do that, then this is our linear programming formulation, and for many sectors, many constraints, we know, how to solve the problem. But what essentially I'm trying to say here is that these optimizations, these decisions in economics, at least at the theoretical level, are guided by the principles of calculus. We can also formulate linear programming problems. We also use game theory. But in many cases, we see there are many assumptions. There are also some degree of abstractions in many cases. And combining multiple objectives and multiple constraints and recognizing the complementarity or trade-offs, often some such situations become very, very difficult to be addressed or solved by using some such formulations. So, to the best of my understanding, I think the AI techniques, use of or application of AI techniques in economics would help in resolving many such complex issues. Let us just take one complex issue in this particular case. When we are converting this problem into a linear programming formulation, we are assuming that the objective is to minimize the labor cost. Because here we have assumed that labor is the only primary factor that is used in the production process. Let us assume that there are many such primary factors. Let us assume that the objective function is not linear like this. Then how to solve? Yes, there are certain nonlinear techniques, but we can think of some such problems from the perspectives of AI algorithms. So, following our previous class, what we discussed in the previous class, we had basically highlighted the problems. In today's class, I basically tried to show how some such problems, some such issues can be addressed at least at the theoretical level by using calculus or by using linear programming. With this, I'll stop. As I said, there are many limitations, many complexities of some such approaches, particularly from practice point of view. And we'll now look forward to see how some such issues can be addressed by using AI algorithms. So I'll stop here, and that's all from my side for the time being. I'll again bring in some examples in respect of choice under uncertainty. After this part, this multi-criteria, multi-dimensional, multi-party decision-making process, these issues are resolved through artificial intelligence. Thank you. That's all from my side, sir.
Good, thank you. You can stop sharing. I will.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So thank you. And from what Professor Pulak Mishra has discussed, we will now move on to the AI side of what we want to do. So in AI, while we want to analyze different problems, we would like to find out some general purpose methodologies. And in order to find out some general purpose methodologies, we need to understand two things. One is the complexity of the problem. Like he just mentioned, the linear equations for which you can set up LP or you can use calculus. And secondly is how do you model any problem? Especially when you start introducing all the real life constraints into this. And what do you do about it? Model any problem for a more general purpose set of methods. So moving on, we have discussed, we are discussing the resource allocation problem. And there are several other problems where negotiated solutions, policy decisions, and we will try to see how all of them can be put into a framework. We also come back to our issues of various kinds of variables, which include not only discrete and continuous, but textual events, signals, sentiments, qualitative, quantitative, mixed, and multidimensional, multi-objective, multi-party, and several other things. And in order to do that, there are several methods in AI which we discussed last day. And in this part series of lectures, we shall concentrate on these three methods, namely what is called heuristic search, multi-objective optimization, and stochastic exploration. In addition to that, we would need to have a good idea of how algorithms work. and how problem complexity is related to algorithms. And instead of understanding that whole thing in its complete dimension, because only a few of you may have done the algorithms course, we will take, follow up from what Professor Pulak Mishra did and start with our examples. So I want you all to help me with these examples. So our problem 1. I have got a piece of land or any resource R of size L, total size L, and this is part 1. Part 2, there are k bidders B who bid for the land, and each bidder BI guarantees RI amount of revenue R. Now tell me, is this problem statement understood by everybody? Has everybody understood this problem statement? So this, the RM amount of revenue per unit piece of land. And this is size L units. So now tell me, how will you solve this problem? Anybody? Just unmute and tell. How will you solve this problem? Anybody? This is so simple. How will you solve this problem?
Sir, give all the land to the highest bidder.
Correct. So the solution that you are proposing is solution sort by RI and give to highest bidder. Because what did you make? And in order to do this, what was your objective? You gave the solution without asking me what is my objective, isn't it?
Sir, my objective is to maximize my income or my earning.
So maximizing revenue, right? Everybody agrees?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. Now I may give the problem a little variation. I say allow every bidder only 1 unit of land. Then what is the solution?
Top L, a number of bidders.
Sort by RI and give to the top L bidders. Here, what are you doing? You are maximizing revenue and maximizing bidders. But here is a small catch. What is the catch? If the total number of bidders was less than L, what would you do? The total number of L could be 55. The total number of bidders could be 4.
If you still want to maximize the revenue, we can give the rest to the highest bidder.
So would you only give? Yeah, so now you could say that either I stop here, but if I want to fully utilize the land, that means my third variation is allow every bidder. So let us read it. Distribute as equally as possible. That means I want people to get as much, almost everybody to get a fair equivalent, even irrespective of whatever I do. If that is my objective, then what will I do?
Give L by K to everyone, and then the remainder you can give it to the highest bidders.
No, you're doing equally. So if you have to do equally, then what do you do?
L by K to everyone.
No. Let's follow the same structure. Then sort by RI and distribute 1 unit at a time in round robin fashion, right? I give the highest, the second highest, third highest till it is over. Then again I come back and go to the highest, because that way at least I will be giving everybody will get at least X or X plus 1, isn't it? If I sort by RI, so if I have got how many bidders I have K bidders. So I will have R1, R2, RK. So I choose bidder 1, bidder 2, up to bidder K, and if K is less than L, then who's the next guy who gets it?
B1.
B1, B2. This is round robin, na? Again B1. Are you getting the idea now? If I do it in this fashion, then everybody gets at least, if the smallest, the guy who gets minimum gets K, then the guy who gets maximum gets, if the guy who has minimum gets P units of land, then the guy who gets maximum gets how many units of land? P plus 1. Correct? Is everybody with me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now I am changing the problem a little. Now, as Professor Mishra said, now I say that the land is of 3 types with L1, L2, L3 of each. Each bidder is asked to provide 3 so they are to provide 3 RI1, RI2 and RI3. That means They will say if you give me B1, if you give me a 1 unit of land for type 1, then I will give you return R1, RI1. If you give me 1 unit of type R2, then the ith bidder will give you RI2. If you give me 1 unit of type R3, then the bidder will give you RI3. Now suppose I want to distribute in the first category. What will I do? Again, I will
Sort
sort
based
sort
on
what?
Sort based on revenue value.
So I will sort based on. So I will make the other Snehal Reddy. Can you tell me what to do?
Yes, sir. I mean, like so for each of the types,
You will
you can
make
sort.
three sorted lists.
Yes.
One for the first part, one for the second part, and one for the third part.
Yes, sir. And
then you will do the same thing, right?
yes, but like again depends upon the objective. If you're only just directly
Right. So let us look at the objective. Suppose the objective is that I have many bidders. So I am given K is much greater than total L1 plus L2 plus L3. OK, let us assume I have many bidders. Let us take this case. And I want to give everybody 1 unit. I want to give everybody 1 unit. What will I do? What will I do?
Concatenate all these 3 lists and sort them.
Concatenate all the 3 lists and sort them.
Yeah, and if R was according by traversing this list, if a person has already been given land, then don't give him like that kind of thing.
So you are sorting the 3 lists, and
Like
you have your 3 lists are there. So you cannot cross L1 for list 1 for category type 1. You cannot cross L2 for type 2, and you cannot cross L3 for type 3. So what will you do?
So here we can only give 1 unit of each.
1 unit.
Like one person can take 1 unit of all 3.
Either
also.
type 1 or type 2 or type 3.
Okay.
For each person, you can check which amount of revenue is greater, and you can give that land to him.
Yeah, you can give which amount of revenue is greater, and you can give that land to him, right? Is that what you will do?
Sir, but if a person has already received another land, then we should exclude that. We should exclude him from that.
And now I'm adding a slightly more twist to the problem. I'm saying each bidder gives their preference. So each bidder, their RI values are same. So each bidder, sorry, let me write down. Each bidder gives same RI value, same RI1, RI2, RI3, but gives a preference. Says that I prefer second one. If you give me, I prefer the second one over the third one or the first one. So they say for the ith bidder will maybe write RI3 greater than RI2 greater than RI1. Some other bidder RI dashed will write Ri2 greater than Ri1 greater than Ri dashed 3. Then what will you do?
Then according to preference order, we will allocate land to each bidder.
Whose preference? Whose preference? Firstly, these Ri values are also are graded. So everybody has somebody's Ri, though all three Ri's are same, somebody has a different Ri.
Will like
Sort and start.
Does this ring a bell with any of your problems that you faced when a problem for which we had to solve the problem when y'all after y'all gave before you entered IIT?
Yes, sir. JEE preference order.
This is the JEE preference order, the joint seat allocation. Samjha?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
This is the joint seat allocation problem. You have got a preference ranking in. So remember that one of the fantastic problems is the joint seat allocation problem.
Sir, even for breadth allocation on basis of CGP.
Even for breadth allocation, all of this gate seat allocation, these are all variants of the same problem. Then the problem may have even more other variants. Is everybody with me? Isn't this interesting problem?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So these are the problems we have to solve. Nah? Pulok told me that I am giving the basic problem. You give some good problems around this. Na, Pulok?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now the bidder says, bidder now gives a condition. Bidder says, bidder gives a two-part. One is, if you give me xi units of land, so every bidder I gives a set of solutions. That means it says, so the ith bidder says, it gives them some three options. If you give me x1 units, the ith bidder says, if you give me x1 units, I will give you R1 return. If you give me x2 units, I will give you R2 return. If you give me x3 units, because in practical cases, everybody getting 1 unit does not solve the problem. The third thing that can happen is that I'm now raising the complexity of the problem. Now, the third thing that can be said is the more I bifurcate, then I require additional resource overheads. So if I give people 3 disparate units of 3 types of entities, then my overheads are more rather than give them 1 type of 3 units. Now this is all one dimension. The problem can become 2-dimensional. What is a 2-dimensional problem? You now have this land which has got X and Y units. And everybody bids, and each person provides that I will require PI, QI piece and give you an RI return. So I require a piece, I require PI by QI. So everybody gives a bid that I require PI by QI, and I will give you RI return for that. How will you do the allocation? Anybody's guess?
Sir,
Huh.
sort according to PI into QI times RI.
Yeah, so you can sort according to PI into QI times RI, but
And
each of them being rectangles, all your linear programming, linear constraints, all will go haywire, right? You can do by PI into QI times RI, but if you try to do that, if I give you certain pieces, the way they combine into this is basically a what problem is this?
Knapsack.
This is a rectangle packing problem, na? You're given a set of rectangles. You have to pack these rectangles into this larger rectangle such that you can pack. There are various variations. One is if you want maximum profit, you want to pack them in such a way that you maximize RI, total sum of RI. So you would like to choose from this set of K such rectangles from K bidders. You would like to choose the rectangles because you are now actually allocating the plots of land. So you would like to choose these rectangles here. Other than land allocation, can you tell me where this problem arises?
The chips, silicon chips.
Yes, this arises when you are packing components into a silicon chip. Very good. Who said this?
Sir, Tushar.
Tushar. Good. So you are going to get a problem like this. Is this understood? Now, let me try to give you another problem. Another problem is that I have several people who have land in a particular place. So let us say that here is a place where farmers have land. And I'm going to use this place for some other purpose. Maybe I'm going to use it for a military purpose. So I'm going to take these farmers and give them land somewhere else. Now currently they have various dimensions of land, and I have 3-4 options to give them. So I would like to now take these people and place them in another place. So I'm going to take a set of people and take them into another place. So land reallocation problem. What will be my objective here? Because I have to allocate to everybody. What will be my objective here? What will be my objective in the land reallocation problem?
So is it to keep the dimensions as close to original as possible? And
Firstly, to keep the dimensions as close to the original as possible. Very good. And what is the second?
Maybe maximize revenue.
No. You have to give everybody.
Pack
So
it
there is
all.
no revenue to maximize.
Pack
Pack
it
them
all.
into
the available land.
yes. So the smallest portion of the land. Use the smallest portion of the land to make them so that you can create as much free space for other things. Correct? So you're going to try and keep the dimensions as same as possible with the same area. And then you're going to put them so that the total X and Y are the total area. Because they are all different, you can imagine that there will be wasted space wherever you do. So you will have to give them somebody a little more, somebody a little less or whatever. You'll have to do this distribution in either a fixed area or you will have to you use the minimum area to do it. So this is also used in industry. Where is it used? You have got an industry where there are these rolled plates. You have seen these rolled plates like this, which you can take them out and make a long sheet. And they give you all these rectangular pieces to cut out from there. This is called the stock cutting or the plate, very famous problem in economics. And your objective is to minimize what? This. This is fixed. So your objective is to minimize this R. Let us come to a problem where in addition to doing all this, I have to also construct a road network. So I will combine this problem with another problem, but let us come to a road network problem. So I have got some places to connect in a 2D map. So this is a 2D map. And I have some places to connect. And I can make roads on this 2D map. But I must ensure what? That everybody is connected to everybody. But depending on the capacity of the road, that I create, the economics of that whole entity will matter. That means each such node has an economic potential EI. So each node has an economic potential EI in terms of the economic revenue that it can generate. There is a cost to connect the road. And if you connect two nodes, then there is an additional EI say, let us call this Fij. Sorry, let me read it. Fij. If I and j are connected by length L, so Fijl, which depends on the length, is another economic revenue that is generated. Is the problem understood? Each node has EI, and then if this portion is connected to this portion by some road network, either it could be a direct road or it could be an intermediate road, then there is an economics that is generated. So how will I make the roads? And that could be multiplied with your this land 2D land allocation problem. So as we are going deeper and deeper, you will start noticing that there is no obvious algorithm. So since there is no obvious algorithm, I would like to have a general purpose method to solve it. This is what Professor Pulak Mishra talked about developing AI. And I can apply linear programming, but it won't work in all problems. Then you say that, okay, I can apply integer linear programming, but then you're packing it into the integer linear programming problem is just a definition of the problem. How do you solve it? The crux lies in the efficient solution. So one of the general purpose methods is to map it to LP, ILP. The other is to map it to some AI model. Now this AI model has got two parts. One is that this general purpose method has got two parts. The general purpose method has two parts. One part is called reasoning, which is algorithmic or logic. The other is a data-driven part, which comes from what? What does it come from? Solving many such problems in the past of this domain, you have generated a lot of data. So with that data, you can now combine it with these methods to solve the problem. Is the overall plan understood, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Now, just to give you an idea of what is happening. The ILP problems for solving chip design, standard Intel type chip design, the ILP problem will take several years. Now, what is the cycle time for a new chip? What is the period by which one chip produces another chip? Between one chip and the next chip of Intel, what is the time gap?
18 months.
Now it has reduced to 6 to 9 months. Therefore, there is no chance of doing a layout and routing in 6 months. AI methods have started reducing that to 1 week. This method, the algorithm methods. When integrated, the latest paper in Nature, when integrated with ML and DL, This has now reduced to 6 hours. So this is the power of being able to do that. So in this course, in the subsequent class, and now also, we will start studying some of the methods. In this module, we'll study the algorithmic methods, general purpose algorithmic methods. In a later class, you will study the machine learning and deep learning methods. So we have done this modeling of single objective. So now, as Professor Mishra mentioned, can you tell me, see this road network? Okay, can you tell me a problem where an economic problem of this land distribution where we have more than one objective? Any one of our land distribution problem, what could be more than one objective? Suppose you have to give it to 20 companies or 20 startups, and so you've got some space and you want to give it to startups. So what could be your different kinds of objectives to meet? One obviously is revenue.
They're providing it to as many startups as we can.
As many startups. Then how many people they employ, isn't it? Employment generation could be a very important criteria. Any other?
Time taken to receive revenue.
So gestation period, right? Then
Land given to a particular startup should not exceed a particular value.
Yeah, those are constraints. Those are not objectives. IPR generated. And so on and so forth.
Sir, government may also have the objective of having as much tax revenue as possible.
Right. So profit, tax, so many objectives can be there. Now, in a single objective function, it is easy to say what I will do. What is the solution? Because I will either maximize or minimize. Now, suppose I have got two objectives. One objective is revenue. The second objective is employment generation. And I want to maximize both. Now, if I have two solutions, solution S1, which generates 100 units of revenue and 40 units of employment generation. Another solution S2, which has got 80 units of revenue and 30 units of employment generation. Then which one is better?
So first.
So I can always say S1 is greater than S2. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Aditya, are you there? Aditya, are you there? Aditya KS. Divyansh, are you there?
Yes, sir.
And Divyansh Gupta, are you there? Dekho. So much there. Divyansh Gupta sleeping. Okay. So Divyansh Gupta, which one is better, S1 or S2? I can't hear you, Divyansh Gupta. Type in the chat box. Sonkar, Divya, Sonkar, which one is better?
Sir, S1.
S1. Now, suppose I write 120, 20. Now, is S1 better than S3?
Yes, sir.
S1 is
Sir, we
better than
can't tell.
S3.
Sir, actually, it's maximizing the employment. S1 is
No.
maximizing.
You have to maximize both, na?
Yes, sir.
So still is S1 better than S3?
So we have to see what weightage you are assigning to both of the
So you have
factors.
decided how to assign, why you have to assign weightage. Why?
Yes.
So so you're saying that I will convert any multi-objective problem into a single objective problem.
No, sir. Like
So how much
sometimes.
of your mother is happy and how much of your father is happy, you will do W1 into mother plus W2 into father. Anybody else? Forget weighting is a simplification. So what we will say is that S1 and S3 are not. So we say S1, S3 are not dominating each other. No one dominates the other. What about S2 and S3? Does S2 dominate S3 or does S3 dominate S2?
Again, we can't say anything.
We can't say. But from these three, would you retain all three? Or what would you retain?
S1, S3.
You would retain only S1 and S3. Because you will retain only those elements which are not dominated by anybody else.
So I'm not really sure why, because we are unable to compare S2 and S3 as well, right?
Yeah, but if somebody chooses, I'll come to it.
Yes, sir.
When I say that my non-dominated set is S1 and S3, then what do I mean? That among all the solutions, there is somebody in this non-dominated set among all the others, which I have not considered. So if the total set is T and non-dominated set, this is the definition, is D, then for each element, each X element of T minus D, what do I have to, what can I say?
They are dominated by
there is some Y element of D such that Y is better than X. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So if I cannot combine them into a single objective, then my answer will be the non-dominated set. Now the user to whom I have given the solution has to choose from this non-dominated set. This non-dominated set has got a very nice pictorial in 2 dimensions. Suppose I am having dimension revenue and employment generation. Then this non-dominated set will be looking like this, no?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And if both are minimization problems, if both are minimization problems, then it will look like this. Correct? In higher dimension space, anybody knows the name of another very famous name of this set?
Pareto front.
Yes. This non-dominated set is called the Pareto set. And find out who was Pareto. Pareto set is named after a person called Pareto. So when we have multiple objectives, instead of a single solution, I will produce a set of solutions. Now the user will have to choose which solutions to take, or the user will now give me a preference. Looking at the solution, will see there are 2 ways. One is user can give me the preference upfront. If the user gives me the preference upfront, like Priyanka was saying, they give me a weighted function, then I can convert to a single estimate. But in many cases, after I give the solution, the user gives me, you go to a restaurant, they give you a menu card. Now from that menu card, you decide what you want to do. So this is also like a menu card. From the menu card, they will tell you what to do. Now, when there are multiple parties, then the problem becomes even more interesting. That land allocation problem becomes a bidding problem. This bidding for land they say that I will first allocate. So the land L is broken up into pieces, L1, L2, up to Ln. So you bid for something and they allocate only one portion. And then ask those who have not received anything to revise their bids. Again you bid. So now you are bidding depending on how much land is left, how much is your desperation for wanting it. So there is bidding, auction, all of them have a sequence of moves by multiple bidders. Now, as Professor Mishra said, each bidder has a kitty. So how much they will give in their first kitty, first bid? If they get something, how much will they give in their second bid? Etc. etc. And depending on that, people start, checking that if I get this, how much is my expected revenue? Have any of you followed the bidding process for these IPL players?
Yes.
So these are all very interesting problems for which what we want, as I just mentioned, is some general purpose method. So what is this general purpose method? Among the many general purpose methods, one of them is solved by a method called search. Plus heuristics.
Hello,
yes.
Sir, it's
Yes.
already 6:23. Can we stop?
No, I will take a little 5 more minutes. I will stop at 6:30. We will have search plus heuristics. Search where? Search in what is called a state space. How is this state space created? It is created from the problem description. So the state space is a general method of solving problems which comes from any problem definition. I will create this state space. What is this state space? That we will discuss subsequently. So a large number of complex problems, from pathfinding to chess playing to robot assembly to chip design to timetable scheduling to symbolic integration, are solved using state space definitions. This is one of the foundational methods of AI, and there are many basics of state space definition which we shall go through in the next class. And the state spaces look like this. We will again discuss this briefly in the next class. And the state spaces solve a large number of economics and game playing problems. Like this one is the famous traveling salesman problem. This one is the plate cutting problem. This one is which problem is this? This is the equivalent of the resource allocation problem. This is also called a knapsack problem. But our resource allocation problem is a more generic version of it. And then there are these bidding problems which are modeled by state space and solved by state space algorithms. And then we will see that the state spaces could be perfect. You could know everything about the state space. The state spaces could be imperfect. That means you only have incomplete information. The state space have a very deterministic output. If I do this, this will happen. Otherwise, if I do this, then a probability of outcomes is there. Then there can be single players, there can be multiple players, then there can be domain specific knowledge. So this is the methodology that we will use from the next class onwards to solve our problems of interest. So with this, I will stop. You can stop the recording. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Sorry for taking extended time, but I thought that unless we really get to the basics and understand what we are going to do, we will not really gear up for what we are up for. So can anybody stop the recording or should I stop it? Okay, I'm stopping the recording.